Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jack. The channel just recently crossed over 10,000 subscribers, which is so incredible. So firstly, a massive thank you to all of you supporting and watching my videos. I put so much effort into making them, so I'm just so glad that you guys like them enough to actually watch them. In today's video, I wanted to talk about Apple and some of the product launches that we can expect to see this year throughout 2023. There's a few interesting rumours floating around that we'll get into. Apple is expected to launch an entirely new product this year in a new category for them. I've got a few predictions myself of things that I think that we'll see and a couple of things that I'm hoping for. And I want to know what you guys think too, so let me know in the comments if you're waiting to upgrade to something this year, or if there's a feature you want to see, or if you've got any predictions for yourself. And if you're in the future, you can call me out if I'm way off on any of mine. So let's start first with the Mac, as there's a few Mac updates that we can safely expect are happening pretty soon. We've had some version of the M1 chip in pretty much every Mac now, apart from the Mac Pro. I myself have a 16-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro. That's a bit of a mouthful. And in June last year, we got the first M2 chip in the redesigned MacBook Air with even more performance gains over the M1. The Mac Mini, the iMac and the MacBook Pros are well due to get a refresh to that latest chip. The Mini hasn't had a refresh since November 2022, which is well over 2 years ago now. And the design has been largely the same for even longer than that, so maybe it'll get a new, slimmer look. The iMacs did get quite a colourful redesign, so I wouldn't expect any major changes to happen there. The same with the MacBook Pros. They got rid of the touch bar, they brought back the ports, and they weirdly added a notch to the display. The MacBook Pros are likely to be updated very soon. They were rumoured to get a refresh at the end of 2022, but that's now been pushed back to the start of 2023. I'm still very happy with mine, but there are definitely some upgrades that I'd like to see, like making that notch smaller for one. It doesn't actually really bother me that it's there. macOS even hides it in full screen apps. It seems so unnecessarily big. It houses the Face ID camera, the ambient light sensor and the True Tone sensor, but there's no Face ID system in there. And it just looks a bit dated next to some of the smaller notches that we've had since, and the fancy new dynamic island on the iPhone 14 Pros. Some of the ports we got back could also see some improvements too, like the SD card slot, which only supports up to 250 megabit a second transfers at the moment. The HDMI port is a 2.0 port, which is limited to supporting just a single 4K display with a refresh rate up to 60 Hz. HDMI 2.1 would allow the port to run a 4K display up to 120 Hz, which would match the ProMotion display, which currently you can only do using the Thunderbolt ports. But other than a spec bump with newer chips, there's not a lot of rumours suggesting any big changes for the iMac or the MacBook Pro. They've already had their redesigns. I think that this year's Macs will mostly be focusing on spec bumps aimed at anyone still using an Intel machine who is looking to upgrade. And then of course there's the Mac Pro, the only Intel Mac that's left. It'll be interesting to see how modular an M series Mac Pro can be, and if they'll give it an entirely new design or just shrink down the current tower. Maybe they'll give that bin design from a few years ago another go. We'll just have to wait and see. Supposedly it was going to run on two M2 Ultra chips fused into an M2 Extreme, but that doesn't seem to be happening now. It will just have a single Ultra chip. Going back to external displays for a moment, there have been a few rumours about a potential new 27-inch mini LED studio display, again with potential high refresh rate and ProMotion support, possibly also launching very soon, sometime at the start of this year. I am looking to get an external display just to make editing the videos on my channel a lot easier with all that extra screen space. Plus the M-chip iPads have much better external display support, which I do really want to try out. But I do think it's going to be pretty pricey. I mean, the current studio display starts at £1,500. So yeah, if anyone has any other high quality display recommendations, let me know in the comments below. I'm not just looking at Apple displays, I'm well open to your suggestions. Now, we can't talk about the year ahead for Apple and not mention their heavily rumoured VR/AR/mixed reality headset, or whatever it ends up being. The latest rumour suggests that we'll get our first look at it sometime in the spring, possibly at a March event, with the actual launch happening sometime later this year in the autumn, which would make a lot of sense. That gives time in the summer at WWDC for Apple to really focus on third-party support for the headset, so it launches with a load of third-party apps. But I'm just really intrigued as to what the headset even is. Is it recreational, mainly for gaming, for productivity? Could you use it to virtually extend your Mac display using mixed reality? Who is the target market? Is it for consumers, professionals? Is it a consumption device, a creation device, all of the above? We just don't know, and we're going to have to wait and see. But this will be Apple's first major new product launch since the Apple Watch in 2014. If you don't include the HomePods, Apple has sort of made speakers before. I don't know if anyone remembers the iPod Hi-Fi. That's a bit of a blast from the past. But the headset is a completely new category for Apple. We've seen what some other tech companies are doing, like Facebook with the metaverse. Are Apple going to create this virtual world where they want us to hang out in and hold all our work meetings in? Probably not, looking at the general response and the reactions to the metaverse. But I'm just really interested in actually seeing this thing and learning what it's all about. And then there's the question of price. Some reports are suggesting it could be as high as $3,000, which certainly places it at the top of the market. So it's definitely going to need to impress. Some of the rumoured features include dual micro OLED 4K displays, over a dozen cameras for outward-facing tracking, iris scanning for password and payment authentication, cameras for tracking facial expressions, which would then be translated to your virtual avatar, sensors for detecting hand gestures for controlling the headset itself, just to name a few. And then what they're going to call it? I mean, I'm guessing something like Apple Reality based off of the leaked Reality OS name that's been cropping up in iOS code lately. Let me know your guesses in the comments below. And just on another VR note, I have actually pre-ordered the PSVR 2, which is out next month. That's had a lot of good reactions from people who have tried it at CES recently, so I can't wait to get my hands on it and try it out for myself. Definitely get subscribed to the channel if you want to see my thoughts and reactions and review on that. Towards the end of the year, we're very likely to get a couple of new iPhones as usual. Let's just call them the 15 and the 15 Pro. There are a few rumoured changes here. Firstly, the standard 15 will supposedly be inheriting the dynamic island from the 14 Pro to replace the notch, along with the 48 megapixel sensor on the main camera and the A16 chip. As for the 15 Pro, that could be getting a new A17 chip built on a 3nm process, which would lead to even better performance and efficiency. I'm going to predict that efficiency will be the biggest gains and the focus this year. The iPhone is already just so powerful that there's not a lot to gain from better performance now, and I think that a lot of people would appreciate longer battery life and not having to charge their phone as often. We could be getting a bit of a design update too. We've had round edges on the 6S to the 11 and then the flat sides from the 12 onwards. We could be getting maybe sort of like a hybrid of the two next, maybe with rounded edges going around the back but flat edges on the front. There's also been reports that we'll be losing the physical volume buttons. There'll still be volume controls on the side, but not in the form of an actual button that you can press. Instead, they'll be getting replaced with haptic feedback buttons. So when you press them, you'll get a haptic vibration that feels like you've pressed a button. Basically like the Force Touch trackpads that Apple's been using on the MacBooks for some time now. The trackpad doesn't click or move at all. Instead, the haptics make it feel like you've clicked something. And to be fair, it's actually really convincing. It works really well on the MacBooks. But I'm just not sure how well that would translate to the iPhone. Like, how would you reach your hand into your pocket and adjust the volume if you can't feel any buttons? Maybe that's a tiny use case scenario. It'll be interesting to see how well it works. The 15 Pros are also reported to be getting a new camera with a true optical zoom, which would preserve image quality unlike a digital zoom. Optical zooms work by physically moving the lens elements to magnify the image, which on a normal camera is fine, it's a different form factor. But on a thin smartphone, you'd need a pretty beefy camera bump on the back to house all of those optics. Now, a few other smartphone makers like Samsung, Oppo, Xiaomi, and more, they've already solved this problem by using a periscope camera. So instead of extending the optics out the back of the phone, they're placed horizontally inside the body with a mirror to reflect the image onto the camera sensor. It's pretty clever stuff, and it's something that I've been really wanting to see come to the iPhone for a while now. And the rumours suggest that it will come later this year, but only on the 15 Pro Max. There are also rumours of an iPhone 15 Ultra, but little detail on what that could actually be. Is it a replacement for the 15 Pro Max or another tier on top of that? There are some rumours suggesting that it will have a titanium frame, but not a lot of other details yet. With a new name, I'd predict it having a price bump over the current top-line Pro models too, along with a few new features to differentiate it. And something rumoured to be coming to all models of the iPhone this year is USB-C. The Lightning port has been around for over a decade now. Arguably, it was a great port when it was first released. It was a lot smaller than the dock connector and it was reversible, but USB-C can be so much faster than Lightning, and it's a lot more widespread now. It's much faster for transferring big video files off your phone, and there'll be no need to carry a specific cable just for your iPhone. Plus, there are some EU regulations coming in which may have forced Apple's hand a little bit here. As for a folding iPhone, well, there aren't any rumours to suggest that we'll be seeing anything like that this year, but I think it's safe to assume that Apple will be internally testing a bunch of different folding iPhone prototypes to compete with things like the Galaxy Fold and the Flip if their popularity really takes off. And lastly, just one more thing, also coming at the end of the year, we can probably expect a new Apple Watch, the Series 9. Now, I'm still running a Series 5 watch, I just haven't seen anything compelling enough to want to upgrade just yet. So I am interested to see what's next and if they'll add any more health sensors. Apple has been reportedly working for some time now on blood sugar and blood pressure sensors for the watch, which is quite tricky to do externally on the wrist in a non-invasive way. But that could really help a lot of people who constantly need to be monitoring those things, but there's no time frame on if or when we'll even ever see that. I'm really happy with the current design. I actually really like the rounded edges here just for comfort on the wrist. And I think that the rectangular screen is great. I know some people are wanting a circular display. I'm not so sure. I think it would be really cool to see, but round displays can be really difficult to design user interfaces for. There's often quite a lot of wasted space. I think that the biggest thing that would get me to upgrade is simply better battery life. My Series 5 used to last about 2 days. Now I'm down to about a day, or sometimes a little less if I'm doing a lot of tracked activities. Apple does seem to be focusing a lot on battery life, more so lately with the new Apple Watch Ultra and the new low power modes. So that's definitely something that I'd like to see. So that's just some of the things that I think we'll be getting from Apple this year. Really looking forward to seeing Apple's take on a VR, AR headset and what that means. They're rarely the first to a new category, but when they're ready to enter it, they do often make quite a bit of an entrance. And I do think that it's going to be their main focus product for the year. There's not a lot of rumours for new iPads or new AirPods. Definitely comment below and let me know what you want to see most, and let me know what your predictions are. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more tech content from me, hit subscribe and the bell. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.